We're going live. Come off. I'm gonna bring everybody off. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the bottom line with Lamar and Darren. How's it going today, Darren?
It's going well. Good morning, and
Good
happy
morning.
Thanksgiving weekend to you all. Happy Cyber Friday, Cyber Black Friday. Um, those of you that are doing that today, Cyber Saturday, whatever you want to call it now, is things are kind of blurred. The lines are blurred now. I heard this morning that people were on shopping online on Thursday,
Right,
and this is going to be, I guess, the biggest online weekend for forever, I guess,
because of
because of
COVID, right?
COVID and everything. And so I do still know people who are working retail and in the malls because they will get some more business. But yeah, it should be interesting about those all those businesses that require or that have been that have depended on that income stream on
Right.
this week. And that's going to be interesting.
It's gonna
Jewelry
be good.
stores,
Yeah,
everything like that.
yeah. It's gonna make a difference, man. I think it's gonna be a big year for small businesses as well. During
I
this
hope
time,
so.
they've been really advertising a lot over the past couple of weeks, and I can see that really increasing. I guess going actually into the future because when you're promoting like this because you can't go out as often, or you just feel safer not going out, and you're seeing these advertisements from these small businesses, what happens is that you'll start, if the product is good, the services are good, you're going to save that information. I mean, I've done it over the past year since I've been working from home. There are certain vendors that I actually save in my phone and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to go back to that person because they're pretty good. I like them. I mean,
That's good.
especially like t-shirts. I like, as you see, I'm always wearing a different t-shirt, so, but yeah, but I like certain products. There's different supplies that I get online that I like. You know, whether it's even vendors that I shop regularly.
Hmm.
I've just been using their app instead of going to the stores and getting their stuff. And actually,
Yeah.
sometimes you're getting better deals. Get some good
Yeah,
deals off of
no
there.
doubt, no doubt. There's like a small business day downtown in our small little town here of Galleon, and so my family's down there right now,
Right.
trying to support their businesses,
Okay.
and so they're out and about in person. There's to their stores
Yeah.
in the downtown area, but it should be okay. Shouldn't be a lot of people there, but
Right. That's
y-
pretty good.
we have a lot of coffee shops and things like that. Not a lot,
Okay.
but a few things on there.
Yeah, we got a
So
couple small ones like that around here too as well.
a shout out to our new intro. We had a new intro this morning. A shout out to our producer Bria. Welcome this morning. Good to have you
Yeah,
with us. Hope everyone
definitely.
out there listening has had a great Thanksgiving so far. And on Thursday, hope you were able to have a safe and happy holiday. Um, we
Did
have
you?
a
I'm gonna ask
lot
you
of
a
things to
question.
talk about this morning. So
I was gonna ask you a question, man. What did you? What was like? What was Thanksgiving like for you, or preparing for Thanksgiving, knowing that we were in this time of COVID? What was that like for you? I
it was
mean,
weird. It was odd.
really?
For several reasons because one of which my son had COVID, and so um, we weren't sure if he was going to be able to come home or not, but he was, so that's good. That was good news. So he came home on Tuesday night, and that was great. So we my parents live about a mile away, and we kind of went back and forth as should the four of us go over there, or should we not go over there?
Right.
They keep to themselves pretty much, but we decided ultimately not because um, we had a fair amount of exposure out there. The four of us,
Right.
um, Douglas at college and my daughter at high school, and myself, I was in a nursing home. So we decided not to. So what we did is we shared the cooking responsibilities. What we did is we cooked some of it and they cooked some of it, and
Yeah.
we drove over there at 5 o'clock and we kind of exchanged food, and then we called them when we were eating. So we talked to them,
Hmm.
but it was different.
Yeah.
Um, we still watched the TV a lot that day. We watched the parade, and I like to watch the dog show. Actually, the dog show is nice.
I haven't seen a
Um,
dog show in a while, man.
yeah, the dog show's fun. Dog show's fun. They didn't have a big crowd there. I guess they had much less dogs there, um, because of COVID.
I
But
can
that's
imagine, man.
fun. It's fun to watch the dog show. I watched a little bit of football, but I don't really care about the Cowboys or the Lions
I
really. So no
actually did
offense to
watch the
anyone out
game.
there, but I do watch a little bit of the football games uh, on the NFL on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving Thursday. But yeah,
What, like, preparation for us was different because, like, actually, since we've been here, we haven't had Thanksgiving alone. We've done Christmas alone. We've done, every other holiday, but Thanksgiving, actually our first year. You remember Monicia went to high school with the Befford? Monicia Reese went to
um,
Befford.
the name sounds familiar, Reese,
Yeah.
but I can't picture her. No, so
Okay, yeah, she's in Fort Worth. And our first year we went over there for Thanksgiving. And they
wow,
invited us over, then we moved to the new house, and then the next year, uh the very next year, my daughter and her family came down. Bria
okay,
and her family came down, and then my son came last year. So then it was like, okay, we were supposed to have our other son come down this year, but work got in the way. So it was like, what are we gonna do? Thanksgiving not gonna be the same. Let's just get a pizza, And then it was like, oh, let's go cook dinner.
Get
And
a pizza.
my wife wanted to cook
Wow.
dinner. My wife really wanted to cook dinner, and I was like, why are you gonna cook all this food? Why are we gonna have all this food for what? It's just the two of us. We were back and forth with it, and so we're on the way to the grocery store, and it was like, and I never told the thought about getting the pizza. That I mentioned, I was like, I'm just thinking, man, we could have just got a pizza. And she's like, what? And it's like, I'm like, no, not saying we need to do this. I'm just telling you, this is what my thought was during the week, but I am happy that we're now going. So we grocery shopped, together, and then
You had
came
that sweet
home.
potato pie.
We did, man. And
We saw it. We're a pumpkin pie family, so
yeah, we all sweet potato here, man. I've had a pumpkin pie this year that was pretty good, actually. I was at this, it was like she called it a table conversation, and we were talking about social media, how it influences people, and it was like social distance. It was like 4 or 5 couples, and we were spaced out
yeah,
in this living room, and we were just talking about the conversation of social media and like how's it affecting people. But the host brought up this pumpkin pie. It's like a pumpkin casserole, pumpkin
pumpkin
cobbler type.
casserole.
It was like a cobbler
Okay,
type. So it had the pumpkin in it, had like all these spices and had some nuts and some berries or
that
something.
sounds spectacular.
Man, I hate pumpkin pie. I mean, I literally do not like it. The taste of it is so flat and bland. But this, whatever Beth made, man, it was the bomb. I was like, I would eat this anytime. It was that good. I mean,
Cool,
it was
cool.
that good. So, but anyway, you talking about Thanksgiving, like what goes on around Thanksgiving? I got this video I want to play for Thanksgiving, and
Yeah. So by
um,
the way, if you're out there, so let us know if you prefer pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie, so we can settle this debate right now, and let us know what your Thanksgiving was like if you want to.
what was some of the things
We
that
had this
you?
we had this video. Oh, you have the video of the Georgia entrepreneurs?
Yeah,
That's
but
a good one.
what what would be something you think that would really affect, like something that would really be awesome for a community would be to give away something, food, clothes, and
Yeah.
this you see this all the time with like charities and different programs like that. But over the last few years, you've seen like top name celebrities go and do something awesome like this around Thanksgiving or Christmas. But what made this story so you know good for me was that these were like entrepreneurs who decided to do something different and buy groceries.
Yeah.
And these are young guys, and to see young entrepreneurs come out of their pocket to do something of this nature is awesome. And so, yeah, I want to show this video, and
That is awesome.
I thought this was a great feel good story. I wish we could get more people to chime in during the week. We're asking for feel good stories, but this one's pretty good, and let you all check it out.
Tonight's Hero Central is a story about paying it forward. Ahead of the holidays, 5 entrepreneurs paid it forward in a huge way. They stepped up to pay for groceries for hundreds of shoppers at a Kroger for 2 whole hours. 11 Alive's Latasha Givens talked to one of the 5 good men who left unexpected customers in tears.
$178 of groceries.
Had women literally crying, saying thank you, so we know how much it is.
And that was just some of the reaction a band of entrepreneur brothers received as they blessed customers with free groceries at the Kroger on Wesley Chapel in Decatur.
We're doing a full shutdown. We're spending about 30 grand just to take care of the entire market.
Jason Lobdell says at first they considered handing out gift cards, but that was taking too long, so they went with Plan B.
We literally took over every register at the grocery store. And like one family would go, but they wouldn't cash them out. They'd just keep running it. So we just ran the cash register on all 12 aisles for 2 hours.
After that 2 hours, 10 feet long receipts and even more draped around their necks like a badge of honor.
We were roughly around $40,000.
Lobdell and his friends say the pleasure was all theirs.
I'm still on cloud nine after seeing those faces and getting all those hugs from the grannies and wiping them tears. It was just a good feeling. And, you know, and a lot of us come from those situations. You know, I mean, we come from that type of background. So we understand the true meaning of, you know, giving back and pouring back into our community.
All that got Thanksgiving food. We got tissue. Hey, God is good today. Thank you.
Wow.
That was a pretty good story there.
Yeah, that made me
I
feel
like
good.
that.
You know,
Yeah, it shows you that in America we do have the heart, we do have the compassion, we do have that sense of helping others that are down, and it was good to see something like that with the climate that we've seen in our country over the past 7 to 8 months, 9 months. That something like this would, and the scary part, man. Although they had masks, there was a lot of people in that grocery store.
yep. Yep.
I was like,
I mean,
wow.
last weekend, as I forget where I went. Where did I go? I had to go to a Walmart last Saturday. No,
Okay.
Sunday, and there was a lot of people there. I mean, everyone was in masks and stuff like that, but still, it kind of gets you thinking. There's a lot of people in the stores. I found myself wanting and needing some joy this week.
Yeah.
The way things are with COVID and everything, it just kind of really got you down. And so
Right.
something like that is really what I needed to hear and needed to see. And, he said it all. When it makes you feel good, he spent a lot of money, $40,000,
Yeah.
and he's all smiles. He's
Yeah,
not going to
definitely.
see any of that back. That's pure gift from the
Right.
heart.
Right.
And,
Right.
so that was spectacular. I'm sure there's other examples out there in this country of people doing
Yeah.
things like that, just kind of for strangers.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing something like that for strangers. Just doing something nice. Just do something random that you normally wouldn't do for people, and it just makes a difference. It changes lives sometimes. Just a small gesture can change someone's day. Someone can be wanting to do something harmful to themselves because they're so depressed and disappointed.
Yep.
Your kindness can change the whole perspective of how they handle the rest of their day and that's sometimes the rest of their life. Now, one of the things that was sort of sad though for this weekend was the NASCAR community is mourning right now. They're mourning William Roddy Harrell. He's a pit crew member for Hendricks Motorsports. He was killed in a head-on car crash alongside a new bridge while on their honeymoon. That's so sad to see just a young couple die. He's 30. His wife Blakely, she was 23 years old. They died Tuesday night in the Florida Keys, just 3 days after their wedding. I can't imagine something like that.
That's sad. Can you imagine that?
I can't imagine that.
For the people that knew them, their parents or friends.
They just got married. I mean, it's like you're on your honeymoon. You're enjoying the beginning of the rest of your lives together.
Yep.
And then something like that happens. So that puts a damper on the holiday weekend. But this is a question for you. This is going into the biggest holiday season of the year. Thanksgiving till January, usually in America. Regardless of your faith, your belief system that you have, what you believe in, still the holiday season for a lot of different religions and different things in our country. So people are shopping throughout the year. I think people started shopping earlier this year because of COVID, but now because of the COVID rise again, there are restrictions booming up all over the country again.
Yep.
How do you?
Well, there's.
So, what was your plan this year for shopping for the holidays?
For shopping specifically, most of our shopping that we do nowadays is online.
Okay.
I did get something for the family that I had to go pick up from Walmart. That's why I was at Walmart last Sunday.
Okay.
I thought I could just pick it up outside, and no, you have to go in. But once you go in, it was pretty easy. But so a lot of this, almost everything we do online. There might be some things that I might go out and get, like gift cards.
Yeah.
I might still go into a store and get them, but most everything we do online, to be honest.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I feel this. We're doing the same thing. On online shopping, things like that, and just seeking out a lot of small businesses also at the time. But Los Angeles is cracking down, man. I don't know.
Big time. Some
where
of these things are pretty. I don't know. I don't know about it. They talked about like turning off power to houses and things. I'm like, wow.
Really? I didn't hear that. Exactly. I didn't read
Well,
an
I
article.
don't think they ever. I think they just threatened it.
Really.
But to even like suggest such a thing is really kind of that's almost out of bounds.
So what do you do with a city of 20 million people? 20 million people in Los Angeles, just the city alone, Los Angeles. You know, like
Yeah,
they're like nearly all the social gatherings of individuals or more than a single household will be banned in Los Angeles County for the next 3 weeks,
Yep.
starting Monday. That gives you like a week before the Christmas weekend, that Christmas holiday, like a week or two to really get out and shop. Do you think that it will work for Los Angeles? I mean, it sort of helped out in New York when they had a big, all the high numbers earlier in the year, but will it work for Los Angeles? I mean, it's like, unless you're non-essential workers, you have to be off the street between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. So all your
Yep.
shopping should be done, right?
Yep.
You shouldn't have anything to do after 10 o'clock. But they're literally locking down. But they said if you live they're leaving the beaches open, and what was it, beaches and something else they're leaving open, just for residents to do those things. But retail businesses are going to cut like 35% capacity. Nail salons 20% capacity.
Wow.
Here it is. Beaches, trails, and parks remain open, so individuals can keep their distance while they're out and about. On those
Yeah.
type of things.
Well, I think that's wise. I think it's good to leave the parks open. As far as like limiting household gatherings, that's going to be so hard to police. I don't know if they've actually knocked on people's doors and like arrested people or given them a fine. I don't know exactly how you would enforce that. I talked to a few people. This is here in Ohio. Well, one person was in Michigan, but they were having 10 people over, and I thought, okay, that to me, to them, that's a small. To some people, that's a small gathering.
Yeah.
To me, it's not, because I didn't have a big family. But so to me, that would be a big gathering.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to some people, that's a small gathering of people. And some people just decided to flaunt the rules. I know the people that live around the corner from us, they always have big parties. They had a big graduation party, and they had a big gathering at Thanksgiving as we passed by. A lot of cars there.
Yeah.
So it leaves you wondering. We're going to see the spike in a week or two from this. I think it did do some good. I think it did prevent some things.
Right.
But the thing is, we'll never know how much it did prevent. You'd have to do some deep dive research to find out what's the possible numbers if there
Right.
wasn't that restriction. So you'd have to do some deep dive into the numbers to figure out if it does work. But I mean, it's obviously going to help a little bit. But we're going to see spikes coming out of this. We're going to see a spike after Christmas as well. And I made the comment before we got on. It's just kind of to me, it's a little bit scary because we were warned that it was going to spike, but I didn't really anticipate that it would happen. So happen all the way.
Right.
That would happen in November, necessarily like right away in November.
Right.
We're experiencing a dramatic rise. All the graphs are up, and it's just kind of it really brought it home for us here at this community in this area of
Yes.
Ohio, because before, like in March when we shut down and we didn't know very much of what's going to happen, we just kind of said, okay, we'll do it because we don't, it could be really bad. We don't know. So, but it never got to us where we are here in small town Ohio. Now it is. Now it's everywhere. Now it's everywhere across the country. It's like Dakotas, Utah. It's in the South. It's everywhere. So it's not just the cities. It's not just New York City. It's not this where the urban areas are. It's just everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's starting to affect our church. It's starting to affect our community, our schools. We get calls 2 or 3 times a week that someone has been exposed. The superintendent calls and has an automated message and says, hey, there's been another exposure at one of our schools, just to let you know. Those that have had contact tracing has been already done, If you haven't been contacted, you haven't been exposed. We have, that person is quarantined, and we've cleaned the room. If it was a teacher, a staff, or a student. So it's always here and in your face. We have a nursing home here that's been very hard hit. Like virtually everyone, all the residents have COVID. We've had some deaths there because of that. So, when I was there a week ago Friday, it was just a very surreal experience. I put on the full nursing gear and like the mask and the hairnet and the robe, and so it's just kind of surreal. It's just like right out of a movie almost going over there.
Yeah, and it's the thing that's really bothers me is that some people still don't think this is something that's a threat, that it's something that's really that serious. I mean, people still have that perception that it's not that bad, that it's something similar to the flu and that you'll get over it, which people are getting over it, but they don't look at it as something that's a threat.
No.
And so
I mean, when it hits somebody that someone that's in your family, then things change.
Mm-hmm.
They'll change in a hurry. Your attitude. You can't help that they would change. Okay. And I just wish people would take it seriously. Yeah. I've gone through all the emotions of like getting mad at people or being sad or frustrated at people. I'm sure I will get mad again. When I go into a store and only half the people are wearing masks, or somebody has a large gathering, just doesn't care. Yeah. So what do you do? It's better to live this year than have holidays next year and the year after for the rest of your life, right? And
I mean, what can we do right now? It's not going to be accepted either way or the other. No one's going to really it's not going to just find unity in that. It's already that divide has already been created. So we're going to have to just look at other ways of trying to handle that. We have to figure out how we're going to do it, as a country. But right now, it is what it is. The divide has been there. It's split on what people think about it and move on. I mean, I've heard so many jokes this past weekend or this past week on how, limiting the gatherings for the Thanksgiving, like, they're making a mockery out of it, that you can do this if you really want to do it. You don't have to listen to what's being said. You can still gather with your family. Don't be controlled by the media. Don't be controlled by politics. That, if you want to meet with your family, meet them. And I thought, I'm like, really? This is what you're putting out there? I mean, I saw several videos. These are just people randomly posting these videos online. And I won't expose them because I don't want to throw their names out there like that. But it was kind of a disappointment that you would make a joke out of this, in that sense. And it's not joking right now. It's not a joke right now.
It's not a joke, and that would make me mad. Had I lost somebody close to me, I would just be angry. And these people that have lost multiple people from their family, these nurses that have seen their so many patients come in and die, and their coworkers get sick and maybe not make it. I would be angry. I'd be angry too. There was something I was listening to this morning as I was getting ready about nurses and what they're going through, and like so many of them are sick themselves.
Yeah.
And nurses coming out of retirement. This nurse came out of retirement because they needed nurses, and she just retired like a year ago. Okay. She came out of retirement, and then she caught COVID and she passed away.
Yeah. On
the job. So, and her daughter was being interviewed, and she's just she's emotional, and she's angry at people. Where do you fall on the scale of like, should we be afraid? Should we be fearful? Are we, is that an appropriate thing? Sometimes I think the media wants us to be scared, or they're trying to scare us, and I'm not sure that's a winning strategy either. Is to kind of scare people. Do you think that's effective? Like, here, they give you all these stats. Here's a stat that I heard today that for every positive infection that somebody is positive and it knows they're positive. There's 8 more that just don't know. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, that's enough to just make you hole up in your basement for 2 months here.
It's rough, man. I think people right now are being overwhelmed by the numbers. I think the numbers are overwhelming to people.
Okay.
I think that throwing these stats out every day, all day long, is overwhelming. People are tired of hearing the stats. I think more so we should be still continuing talking about resolutions and how do we fix this?
Yeah.
How do we help it? But keep throwing the numbers out. People are either going to get pissed at the numbers or they're getting scared by the numbers. It's one or the other. So I think that they're overdoing it. When I say over, it's a reality. It is a reality. But I think, is it being overdone? It takes up, our news media cycle takes up so much of the same repeated stories, that the stories like what we're showing today, we showed earlier today, are being missed during these conversations. And it's always been like that with the media, but I think now it's like really over the top because it's all about ratings. And I feel that we need to just come back to a reality of what real information, giving information, is really about. What's the purpose of giving information? If you know the COVID numbers have risen to X amount of numbers, and you have, like, the last 5 days, X amount of number of people died, do we need to keep hearing that same story? Now, if you say it decreased dramatically over the last 24 hours, it went from 5,000 people in the country died to 300. That's a drop, but to show that we have 200, 300,000 people with the virus, or 1 million people here with the virus, whatever it is. And I think it's just right now, it's just really being like a distraction to everybody's life.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
If you turn on the cable news, you see that the running numbers to the right of the screen, and you're like, okay, I mean, I'm not sure that's effective, really. It just becomes, you get numb to it.
Yeah.
You get numb to it, and it becomes you become complacent regardless of the numbers, I think.
I think you just segue into something, man. You said we get complacent.
Yeah.
We had a 15-minute show yesterday that went over an hour.
Yep.
And the topic is the same way as these COVID numbers. The topic is draining and overwhelming, and that is race in America. It's draining and overwhelming. It's draining for people who don't want to hear about it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming for people who face it every day. So
maybe that's the same with COVID.
It's the same thing. It's overwhelming for those who face it every day. I mean, I've known people who have died from COVID. I've known people who survived from COVID. I know there's people going through COVID right now. I know people that are still hurting from it. So, James made a good point. Story is being diluted because of fatigue by the media, but it does not mean that COVID is any less lethal. Totally agree. And that's what we was talking about with racism yesterday, that it's overwhelming is what I'm saying today. Actually, it's overwhelming. But it's a reality for so many people.
Yeah.
And you hear the phrase all the time, have we gotten past this? Is it over with? And if it was over with, why are we still having the conversation? And what I've heard lately though, was that it's the media that's doing this. I beg to differ that it's not the media. I feel that the media has caught up to the reality that it exists or still exists. It was like we were just, every story we bring up with it. I was just looking at another one just recently, a guy in, what is it? I'm not sure what city he's in, but he's in prison. He's about to do 2 years, sentenced to 2 years in prison because of his threat. He threatened a black family. Okay. This is what's crazy about it. This is according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Eastern District of North Carolina. It's a white North Carolina man has been sentenced for crime violating the Fair Housing Act by threatening a black family due to their race.
Oh boy!
Now think about this. Just that alone has been going on since post-Civil War, right? You have a family in their home just chilling by themselves, and someone does not like them being there, will come and threaten them, whether physically or verbally, to get them out of the community. Now, the Justice Department has announced that Douglas Matthew Gerkins, who was 34 years old, was sentenced to little more than 2 years in prison. Now, for me, I don't want to spend a day in prison. 2 years is long. But check this out. That will be followed by 3 years of supervised release for using the threats of force against a black family due to the family member's race who
Okay.
are renting for him. The sentence is a fraction of the maximum penalty he is facing, which is 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Now, the reason why I stopped there and then came back in with the sentencing and what was supposed to be there is that this again shows you how the system is biased, in my opinion. So we know right now that that these issues exist,
Mhm.
but you just gave a man a fraction of what he should have gotten. Okay, not only a small. Think about it. You're looking at 10 years versus 2 years.
Yep.
Why not 5 years? Why not 6? Now, when you put a penalty down, boom, and make it hard, it kind of make people not want to take that same action again. It tells other people that, they're taking this serious. Because for people who feel that racism is not where some people think it is, like, I think it's still there. I think it's at a high level. I think it affects every aspect of our life to a certain extent. Others think it doesn't. Well, when you have light sentences like this, it shows that it's not being taken seriously.
Yep.
If you would fine that man $250,000, and most likely he probably doesn't have $250,000, the next person will really think hard about threatening a family who's just trying to live, not doing anything wrong. You're not making the penalties hard enough. Like we talked about yesterday with drugs yesterday. The difference in drug penalties. When you had like simple possession of marijuana, what could give you long-term in prison.
Right.
Well, drug use in the black community has decreased between the 80s and 90s to the current times. Those type of drugs have decreased. Not because marijuana has been legalized. I'm talking about the drugs like crack and cocaine, all these powder cocaine, all these things have decreased in the black communities. But then you look at the opioid addiction that came into play, that's not impacting as many African Americans as it is with the white community.
Right.
And the penalty now has been changed to let's go to therapy, which should have been the resolution for that years ago.
Right.
Resolution should have been treatment. This is not normal. And look at how many people have come back out of the military, especially during the 70s, and turned to drugs because of the stress, because of the issue they were dealing with. And then you look at the people that went over during the Iraq war who came back and got on drugs. They got going through PTSD issues, PTSD issues, and they're getting on these different painkillers and different antidepressants, and they're getting addicted to these things.
Yep.
Put people in treatment. So now that it's affecting a large portion of white America, treatment is now the thing that you go to.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. So first of all, the North Carolina situation, that guy that threatened a black family, according to the reports and the articles that I read, he just drove up to some house and began to threaten them, shouting racist slurs and telling them that they don't belong.
Well, not
I'm
just
glad
that
I'm glad he got something, because I've seen things on social media, on YouTube, Karens, basically harassing black people all over the place, and nothing happens to them at all.
Well, the reason being is that they weren't threatening people. This guy literally said he wants to terrorize and kill that entire family and anybody else who comes into that neighborhood, that comes to that house. He's threatening to kill them, and these were kids living in the house. So that's a big difference than just being a Karen.
Yeah,
he was the landlord. He was the landlord that he was talking to his renters.
Okay,
that's different. That's not just like I'm glad he got something. This man is threatening harm on someone.
The second thing I wanted to make is our criminal justice system with drugs. I think that the reason why it's different is twofold. Number one is we realize that throwing people in jail for using drugs isn't an effective deterrent, nor does it cure people or help people. But there is an issue of race there as well. So that the reason why opioid addicts get more treatment nowadays than cocaine addicts did in the 80s is, some of that has to do with race. Some of it does not have to do with race. It has to do with a change in policy. So
Yeah.
things are slowly changing as far as that is concerned. I think that, me personally, I think that criminalizing drugs is going to creates a lot of problems. And they might think about legalizing it and trying to treat people for it. That should be
Yeah.
the focus, and
Yeah.
not simply throwing them in jail
Yeah.
for using something that only affects themselves. So
Right. Totally agree. I agree with that. Oh, you get some, was that coffee, man?
coffee, yeah. So they went
Man, I
down.
need some.
I know. See, this morning I ran out of coffee in my coffee machine, so they were going downtown, my wife and daughter, and they said, "Well, I'll just get your coffee from one of the shops." And
Right.
I said, "Don't wait, bring it in as soon as you get home."
That's good, man. That's good. Family love, man. Nothing like it. Family love.
Purdue
And so-
Pharma pleads guilty to.
What's that?
Here's an article that Bria just gave us.
What was that?
Oh yes, so yeah, some now pharmaceuticals are being charged for crimes because so many people have gotten addicted to these things.
Right. I saw that. I think it started off with was it the OxyContin, the founder of
Yeah.
OxyContin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Purdue Pharma, OxyContin maker. Yeah. So this has been going on for a little bit. So they're bringing more news out about this. Now, have you ever been hospitalized? Had to take OxyContin?
No.
I have. And what I am so happy about with my body, man, my body rejects OxyContin, oxycodone, Percocet, Darvocet, anything with a set at the end of it. My body rejects. No, this is a real life story. This is check this out, man. This is show you your body is designed to heal itself, right? Your body is designed to heal itself.
Yes.
So, okay, I was hospitalized, and I never had this story with you. You never heard the story about me, but it was like 1997. I was 26 years old. I think I was 26 in 97. Can't remember, but I was 26 years old, and I had like this little cold going on. And so I remember being at work, and I just started going off into the sweat. I went home. I laid on the bed. I'm sweating. I had my clothes on in the bed, man, and I like sweated through my clothes. The next morning, I wake up the next morning, and I'm vomiting blood. It was like crazy.
Oh my God.
And so I go to the emergency room. It's like 5 a.m, and they say, Lamar, you have pneumonia. I've never had pneumonia before. And so they, take me in, they give me some Percocet, sends me back home for pain. The Percocet, because I was just like, my chest, my rib cage, everything was just hurting, my whole chest. So they gave me the Percocet. I take the Percocet, and every time I take one, I vomit.
Wow.
I couldn't hold it down. So this went on for I got home like about 9 a.m. and about 9 o'clock that evening, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't rest. Every time someone give me something to eat, I take the Percocet, I will vomit. So then I stopped eating and just took the Percocet, I'd vomit. And so my mom came by the house and was like, man, you look really bad. We need to take you to the ER. So I packed up, went to ER, and I'm in the lobby in the waiting room, right? And you know how you go to the waiting room, it's like tons of people. Cleveland Clinic, it's like tons of people in there.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, and all of a sudden, I'm continually throwing up in this. They had me this big bucket to throw up. I mean, I threw up in the floor. First, I threw up in the floor at Cleveland Clinic. I couldn't make it to the bathroom, and it's just really like just going off. So anyway, they get me in there, and to not make a long story short, basically, I get in there, and they start taking my blood. They checking my blood levels and everything, and they put the little Posox on your finger to check the oxygen. The oxygen in my blood was like low, like super low.
Yeah.
And she realized that my kidneys have not functioned. They asked me, like, when was the last time I went to the bathroom? I'm like, I can't remember. They said, sir, it looks like your kidneys have shut down on you.
Oh, boy.
So they were looking at me. They're like, you're literally dying right now. I'm sitting in the hospital. They're like, you're dying right now. And they start filling me up with fluids and all this stuff. So anyway, between being in the emergency room from 9 a.m. and they finally got me into a room by like 11, maybe 12 in the morning, I had one of my lungs had collapsed.
Wow.
During that time, yeah. So the next morning I wake up and they're telling me, they're like, you're in bad shape. Have you been out of the country? They doing all these blood tests on me. They knew I had some type of infection, but didn't know what was going on. And then as I'm there that morning, my other lung collapsed. So both my lungs are now collapsed with pneumonia. And I'm dying. They filled me up with fluid to make my kidneys run again. So my kidneys were functioning. And the doctor looked at me, what's weird? I've never experienced this since then, that when a doctor can look in your face and he's asking you these questions, you're like, dude, like, what are you trying to ask me? He's like, where have you been? Have you been out of the country anytime recently? I'm like, no. I'm
scary.
He's like, what's going on with you? He's asking me. I came to you because of something's going on. He's like, what's going on with you? I'm like, I don't know.
Wow. He's
like, you're dying, and we don't know why you're dying. There's infection in your body. We can't find it. For 10 days, I went through they pulling fluid out of my lungs, trying to test for 10 days. And people always ask me, why is my faith level so high? I tell them that, I survived this ordeal in the hospital by the grace of God.
Wow.
I was there for 10 days. And then I remember my cousin came over. If you remember, I had a cousin that passed in October.
Yes.
He came to visit me in the hospital. And we were watching. I'll never forget it because we were watching when Ivan Iverson, what's his name? Allen Iverson was in high school when they were doing the McDonald's basketball game with all the high school players. And after that game, my cousin left, and I just prayed that night. I was like, God, I know I'm yours. I'm a child of yours. I believe in you. But if you're ready to take me, I'm ready to go. I was on like 80% of the hospital's oxygen at that point. I'm like, I'm ready to die, man. I'm yours. I cannot go but to a better place than this.
Okay.
I mean, that's where I literally had given up on everything at that point. And so I'm ready to go. And as I'm laying there, I go to sleep. The next morning at like 6 a.m., they come check my vitals, and they said that my vitals were better. That I went from 80% of the hospital's oxygen to now 40% of the hospital's oxygen. Like overnight, it just my breathing came back.
Yeah.
And then she checked everything was looking better. And then by like 8 o'clock in the morning, the doctor comes in and I dropped another 20%. So that means I'm on 80% of my own oxygen, 20% of the hospital's oxygen.
Okay.
And I asked the person there, I'm like, the nurse, I told the doctor, I said, doctor, test me now. I guarantee you find out what's wrong with me. Test me now. He's like, what makes you think it's any different? So I just prayed about it. And I know you test me now. Because right now I'm at the point I'm willing to die. And the guy when he tested the fluids in my back that day, they came back in like less than an hour or whatever it was and told me it was staph infection in my body.
Oh, okay.
How did I get staph?
That makes sense.
When we did the research, staph pneumonia is one of the deadliest cases of staph that you can have. Oh, by the way, when I was in that hospital that first 3 days, I lost 25 pounds in 3 days. So during those 3 days, from when you look at the research on staph infection, typically a person will die in 3 days from staph. I was at that point, this was 1997. I was one of like 35% of people across the world were survived staph pneumonia. That same weekend, a 40-year-old man died, and a 6-year-old kid died. So age wasn't a factor. So 35% of the people do not survive staph pneumonia. And I walked through it. I came out of it, but it took me like 3 months to get my. Actually, that was our first class reunion that year, and I didn't make it because I was.
The fifth.
recovering. Well, that wasn't the.
No, that would have been the 10th.
That was a 10-year
The
reunion.
10th, 10-year reunion. Yeah.
That was. I think that was our first reunion, the very first reunion we had.
Yeah.
And I didn't go.
I was there to
because-
that one.
Were you?
Okay.
Well, that's why I wasn't there. I was recovering. I was
Wow.
recovering from that pneumonia. I had to stay in the house for like 3 months, basically, just so my body can recover.
Bria
But,
was born by that time, right?
Yeah, she was born. She was a little kid at the time. She was like 2 years old, 2.5.
Uh-huh.
But the whole point is that we're going through so much stuff with illnesses and disease that do we really know how to? How I want to work this? Are people taking illness serious enough to keep themselves healthy? How are we responding to illnesses? How do we look after one another with illnesses? Then you look at the medication that they give you, pumping you with these different meds. If I had taken that Percocet and I wasn't rejecting the Percocet, I would have died in my home. Me vomiting that Percocet up is what kept me alive.
Saved your life.
Saved my life.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a dangerous drug. It's dangerous and it's reactive and it has a lot of side effects. I mean, I haven't been on Oxycontin necessarily, but I had been on Percocet. I had been on like a codeine type of Tylenol mix after like surgery or after I'd broken something. I did have a staph infection. It was kind of weird. I had spider bites that kind of never went away. They kept coming back.
Okay.
And I had to be on steroids and things like it was very painful.
Yeah.
On my legs. And so that was kind of a weird thing. But I haven't been on Oxycontin per se, but I've been on other kinds of pain medicines. And, it always kinds of scares me to do a lot of that. I don't like to do it. I don't like to, only if I need it kind of thing. So
I don't take anything, dude. I've had 7 back surgeries. And I started off with my first surgery. They gave me Oxycontin, and I couldn't take it. I vomited that up. Since then, man, I do a Tylenol 3. But now I'm at the point now I don't take meds for anything. I haven't taken meds all year.
Wow.
For anything.
Well, that's something.
For headaches, for body aches, or anything. I don't take anything. So right now, if I have a headache, I just take me a little piece of ginger root and chew on it. It like clears all the inflammation out of your
Does
out
it?
of your head.
Okay.
It's kind of hot though, and you just got
kind of clears you out.
It clears you out, and it takes the headache away. I mean, literally, that's what I do when I have a headache. So, but yeah, these drugs, man, these opioid type drugs and everything are
it's bad news.
It's bad news
stuff.
because people are looking for immediate relief.
This is one thing about. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm saying the immediate relief, whether it's immediate relief from depression because of the way your life is, or immediate relief from pain. Now, if you're in immediate relief for pain, and you get used to that immediate relief, what are you going to continue to take those?
Yep.
So,
I mean, here's one thing about the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, is like, are we depending on it too much, or have we become a country of pill poppers, basically, and medicines? And have we
definitely
bowed at the altar of science too much when in regards to our health? Because everything has a pill for it. Everything does. And what do you see when you watch TV? It seems like half the things you see are some prescription drugs, right? Which kind of like makes me scratch my head. It's like, first of all, why do you have to advertise for that?
Yeah.
If you need it, shouldn't your doctor prescribe something that you need? If you need that, if your doctor thinks you need that, but it's like, ask your doctor about this. And then they list off for 30 seconds all the possible side effects you might have from it. But, it's great. These happy smiling people like in parks and things like that, joint pain to depression and anything under the sun. And it just kind of makes you wonder, we could have solved this with trying to shut down and wear masks.
Yeah.
We could have gotten could have gotten control of this that way. Now it's gotten to the point where we need to get those vaccines, and then is that gonna be it?
Have I don't know, man. I mean, have there been any side effects from this? From
Yes.
the COVID-19.
I mean, the one I read a few weeks ago, the guy who was on the trial and had taken it, said that it's a couple of days he felt ill.
I did
He
hear
has
that.
like
I did hear that.
flu-like symptoms,
Mhm.
and which I used to get a reaction from the flu shot.
Yeah.
Okay, and that I would like for a day I would get the flu shot, and then I would feel terrible the rest of the day, and so
Yeah.
that's why for a long time I didn't take the flu shot because it made me feel bad, and then later on in the year, a month or two later, I would get the flu anyways. So I just kind of said to myself, well, this is silly. I don't know. Are we like trying to vaccine ourselves so much that we're going to create a disease that doesn't have a cure, that mutates so much that you're not going to be able to, it's going to get just more serious? I don't know. I'm not a medical doctor, but it just makes me wonder. It just makes me wonder.
Well, first of all, we is not. Don't put we in that because I'm not doing it.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I'm not the person that's going to be. I'm not saying that I won't take something in the future. It depends on the situation. But right now, I'm not doing it. But they say like some of the symptoms of it, it said it's similar to the flu, but you have muscle pain, chills, and headaches. Furthermore, patients in these trials of both vaccines disclosed in a CNBC report that they experienced high fever, body aches, headaches, day-long exhaustion, other symptoms after receiving the shot. Now, what will be awesome for me to see in a commercial, when you see these pill commercials and these medication commercials,
Yeah.
instead of having that person smiling, have them going through their symptoms of their issues, taking that medicine, and then show them the possible side effects from it. Because now you got to make a educated decision. Some people will take that risk because they're in that much pain, which I totally understand. But there's a false perception of these medications when you see these people walking down, smiling and holding hands by the river.
Yes.
And the narrator's talking in a very silent voice. These side effects may cause stopping of your heart,
Dizziness,
headaches, possible death.
nausea.
No, possible death.
Yes.
And they're like,
okay,
ah.
yeah, you sold me. I'm going to go ask my doctor today. I'm going to go get on the phone. I mean, come on.
That's not cool. It's not cool because it affects.
Yeah, sign me up for that one.
It's a trick. It's a trick of the media, a trick of the industry of advertisement. Say it that way. It's not. I'm not going to say it's false advertisement because the medication can work, but give people the real understanding. And 2 years ago, I was taking high blood pressure medicine. I've kind of slowed down on that. That's one of the things I'm trying to get rid of out of my system. That's the only medication I actually take right now. But I'm trying to get it out of me. I don't want to take it anymore. But one of my medications, I'm looking through Smart News on my app, and I read that the medication I'm taking has been banned or taken off the shelf.
Wow.
And my doctor never told me.
Really?
No. So I needed to re-up on my medications. So I go to the pharmacist, and I'm telling the pharmacist, I gave her the medication. She said, they're not selling this anymore. I said, yeah, that's why I'm here talking to you about it. Like, what do you suggest? The pharmacist changed my medication for me. Not even with my doctor's consent. She changed it because she knew that it was banned. And then when I showed her
I didn't know they could do that.
I didn't either, but she did. And then she saw that, she looked at my doctor. She said, well, he's a very good doctor. I said, well, he's not been that good with me because I've seen him since they've taken it off the shelf. I've seen him like twice during that period of time. He never mentioned it. It never came up. So when I read about it, it was after I'd seen him twice already.
Wow.
So I changed it on the doctor changed it.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I'm like, what the heck? We're not these things are not good for us.
Yeah. I think we depend on medicines a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So we were going to talk about race this morning. We had a conversation last night, as you said, that was going to be short, and it ended up to be over an hour. So we
Right.
covered a lot of this stuff already, but we kind of had to cut it short in because there's a lot that you could get into.
Yeah. We had a series of questions, and the questions, we can go through them again briefly this time, but and we can expand on some of the things we just try to rush through them right quick. But why is it that we can't have these conversations and just have a good conversation with someone that doesn't look like you about your concerns, and they tell you their concerns, and we come to the middle and meet on some things? I mean, no one likes what our history has been like. No one likes what we're dealing with in America. But to identify with what America looks like, ask someone who's not from here, what do you see?
Yeah.
I have family overseas. So they,
Okay.
we talk and they're like,
what do they tell you?
It's crazy over here. Literally, they say it's crazy over here. It's crazy because everyone around the world knows the truth a lot of times. I take it back. Everyone doesn't know the truth of America. So I have two different situations. People who know the truth of America, our history, are looking at us like we're crazy because we were considered the greatest nation on the planet, and we refuse to cooperate. Then you have people who are from certain countries who really don't have a lot of media exposure to America, didn't realize where we were at until they moved here. So I know a young lady from Africa. She's from Zimbabwe, and she came here on this thing of the American dream.
Right.
And she's hit a roadblock. She's hit this wall where she's like, wow, I never expected it to be like this. And during the time,
is it because of race, or is it because of other things, or both?
Well, a lot of it from her perspective, has to do with race, because she didn't know that it was the roadblocks that were there because of race was as prevalent as it was in America. She thought that,
interesting,
like a lot of people say, oh, that was from pre-60s that we had these issues. They didn't realize some of these roadblocks were still there. And I've seen her roadblocks. Like, I personally have seen her roadblocks.
Okay.
I've seen them. And so I'm not saying everything was based on race, but to say that it's over with in America is a illusion.
No, it's not over, and we keep being reminded that it is not over. I think that for some reason, 2020 has decided to be an illuminating year for many of us.
Yeah.
In regards to race and all this stuff that's now being on camera. Will Smith said that, well, racism didn't just start; it's just being filmed now.
Right,
it's just on camera. It's just on people's cell phones. It's just being uploaded to social media, and that's true. It's always been there, and I guess we all want to think good of where we're from. We all want to think good of our neighborhood, of where we came from, of our race, of our country. We want to feel good about these things, and if there is something like that we're not proud of, if there's things that we're not proud of, and there's things that we shouldn't be proud of in America, then somehow, for whatever reason, our reaction is to kind of cover it up, or to deny it, or to just move on from it, or to say, yeah, but we're great. And I'm just wondering, like, if we project this sort of America is great to the rest of the world, and so they come to America with this sort of America dream in mind, that's actually not reality. Do we promote ourselves too much? This young woman that so she expected something a certain way when she got here, only to find out that there's roadblocks here. It's not exactly free and fair all the time. And liberty is a spectrum on the scale. So there's a lot of things that in our country that we need to work on. Now, unfortunately, some people would say that, well, just simply mentioning that, just simply saying that, is you're hating on America, or you're saying that we're not great. It's actually the opposite. A patriotic view of America is that you want to continue to improve and to make yourself a good place. And so I've never had a problem looking at, I don't really have a problem looking at our sores and wounds and things, and trying to correct them or to be honest about it and having a conversation about it. So
Right. I was going to create a banner for this, and maybe Bria could put it up for me. I had this question leading into, because we put in the term, what do you think of the term white supremacy, white America, white privilege? Even if we eliminate those words from our vocabulary, does the symptoms of those words still reign? Do they still exist? Can we just ignore it away, or can we just not see it anymore and feel that it's cured? I think we went through the 80s like that, the 80s and 90s, where you wanted to eliminate these terms or not really focus on these terms. I think
just kind of pretend it doesn't exist, you mean? Or
yeah, I mean, you try not to. I mean, I've seen families live in a certain community, and they'll have newborn kids, and they will raise their kids without using terms that describe a person's color or ethnicity.
Okay.
Because they're trying to like shield them from the effects of racism. When in reality, when they get older, they're hit in the face with racism. So, but the term I heard her put a banner up with was, what is the term patriot? Who are viewed as patriots?
Who is viewed as patriots? Generally speaking, this isn't me. I think in our society, in American society, a patriot would be somebody who, a soldier is a patriot. Okay. Somebody who is very into promoting America and very into someone who has a high view of the United States and promotes it. So if for some reason it's become viewed more with conservative political values than with any others. So, if you are somebody who believes in the Bill of Rights, if you believe in the Second Amendment, if you believe in those kinds of things, somehow they seem to embrace this term patriot. Whereas if you are some kind of social justice warrior, I believe that should also qualify you as a patriot.
Okay. Were you done?
Yep.
Okay. Now I'm going to read you two main things about a patriot. A patriot is a person who loves, supports, and defends his or her country and his interests with devotion. Okay, that's one definition of a patriot.
Okay.
A patriot. The second one is a person who regards himself as a defender, especially of individual rights, against presumed interference by the federal government. Okay. So
why is that considered a patriot?
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I get it. It makes sense because being a patriot is a political term. But think about this for a minute. The second one there, regards himself or herself as a defender of especially of individual rights against presumed interference by the federal government. This is going to sound sort of racist. Now, how people preface them, like give a disclaimer before they say something they know it's going to be bad. My opinion, Black America has been one of the strongest defenders of this country and what it stands for, and are true patriots in every being because of number two. They've been a defender of individual rights forever that we've been here. So right now you hear this thing about our rights. Our rights are being taken. Our rights are being taken.
Right.
That's the threat in what we were talking. I wish I thought about this last night when we talked, but remember yesterday we were talking about the shift in demographics, the shift of power in our country.
Yeah.
What rights are going to be lost what rights are you have that are going to be lost? What is it that you hear this from white Americans that you're going to lose something? What are you losing? That's what I don't understand. If you have your fear of having okay, look at it this way. Your fear of losing something. Okay, whatever that fear is, you're losing something. Why not try to understand from those who have lost it and have regained it and have gained it?
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who have a better outlook on things because they've been through it already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I talk about a patriot, it's confusing to me what patriots really are by what I see. You're saying you love this country and its interests with the devotion. Well, what are those interests? What are the interests of this
Who
country?
defines what's in this country's interest? Is always,
Right.
you always hear that. Like, what's, national security posts, and Biden revealed his national security staff and everything. And a lot of the phrases were in our country's interest. Well, that's always been a very nebulous phrase. I mean, that could be whose perspective are we talking about? So that's always kind of made me scratch my head. But going back to patriot in specific terms, I mean, why isn't Martin Luther King considered a patriot? Why don't we associate his name with a definition of patriot?
Okay, I can give you my interpretation of that.
Go, tell me.
Okay, again, it goes back to number 2. He was especially a defender of individual rights. Okay.
So why isn't he considered? Why isn't he synonymous with patriot?
Because at that time, his rights was considered legal rights in our country.
Okay.
The Civil Rights Act didn't pass until 1963.
Right.
So prior to that, he didn't have any rights. He didn't have that same what's they call it? That same relationship with our Constitution.
Okay.
As white Americans had with it, because from the time they were here, that we came, that the 1960, the 1619, since the first settlers landed here in America, they established who and what the rights were going to be.
Okay.
Who was going to receive that? So Martin Luther King didn't have that privilege. That was not a privilege of his to have those rights.
But he fought for individual liberties, so therefore he should be considered a patriot.
But what did he start off doing? Asking for something that he didn't have a right to have.
Right.
So think about it. When did he become popular? After he died.
Right.
Most Americans are famous after they died, because people can reflect back on the accomplishments that they made. But if you think about that, if someone right now, you're seeing immigrants that want to come into the United States, but they don't have the rights of an American, right?
Okay.
And so we're fighting that. America is fighting that.
So when this is maybe racist as well, but like when I think of the term patriot, one of the things that comes to my mind, and this is a stereotype because of the names that are associated with and how they're labeled and how groups of people are labeled, I picture somebody who is out there on the southern border, like trying to catch people crossing illegally. They call themselves patriots. Okay.
Well,
going out and rounding up immigrants who are trying to come into this country. So that's what you think of. But why don't we think of people who are working in this country to make this country great? Why don't we consider people who are working in social justice? Why don't we consider people who are trying to expand voting rights? Why don't we consider people who are trying to help homeless people or help people who are uninsured with health insurance?
Right.
And why aren't those people considered patriots? Because they're trying to make our country great as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's considered evil in that sense. It's considered not good. It's considered it's not what the interest.
Why not?
But
it is in our interest.
I would say it is.
Freedom, justice,
I would
peace.
say it's interest. Right. It is an interest. But those that oppose it, ask them why is it an interest.
I think we should expand what the definition of patriot is more than just individual rights.
Oh, I agree. But I'm just saying this is just a definition I found online. But it goes with the definitions that are here makes sense. It's how it's interpreted that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Like you said, the people you just said, the people that are fighting for voter rights, for allowing people. There's no reason why this past election that people were standing in line for 8 hours to vote in a presidential election when they could have went to a local
That's not
library
right.
in their community and voted. They could have went to a local school in their community and voted. There was no need for a stadium to hold people for voting.
Yep.
That right there is violating the rights of people, of making them have to do that, go that extra when it should be so much more convenient in our country.
So one of the things I wanted to go back to that we hinted upon was this idea of identity. You know, we started out thinking about what we wanted to talk about this week, and the first thing that came, the title that we had was The Identity of America. Actually, it's on the top of our screen, I guess. The Identity of America. So how do we think of ourselves, and how do different groups of people in America think of themselves? And then how do people outside of this country think of us? What is our identity to them? We talked about that just briefly. You know, how do people see us? You said that people think it's crazy here, and they look at. I saw all these articles that I read at after the election of how people just can't even imagine America, how there's somebody that's denying election results and this and that, and trying to. That says the election was a complete fraud. And this is the United States of America that's supposed to be the oldest democracy on the planet. And how could this happen to us? And so there's a lot of people outside of our country kind of shaking their heads and scratching their heads, wondering, how could this happen in America? So what is our identity? I think it's many things. And I think it's something outside of America. It's probably something completely different than what we imagine ourselves to be. You know, we always prop ourselves up. It seems like we prop ourselves up a lot. Oh, we're great, we're good. And I think that's actually to our detriment. Somehow we get this idea that we're number one at everything, or that we should be number one at everything. And we see it even in the sports, in Olympics. It's well, why can't we? It's we should be number one in the medal count for every Olympics and every sport we should be good at. And that's just not realistic. You know, guess what? Switzerland is completely in mountains, so it makes sense that they are good at downhill skiing. Okay, it just is. So, you know, all this sort of America first actually is detrimental, I think, to us, because we don't realize what we could be doing better. Somehow, we think that whatever our ranking is, and you know, in healthcare, in education, in gross domestic product, whatever it is, whatever measurement that you're going to use to judge America, somehow isn't relevant, and that, you know, we can't look at, we can't learn anything from any other country in the world, and that's just not realistic. That's arrogant. That's arrogant. I sense a lot of arrogance in this country. It's well, it doesn't matter what they do in New Zealand or Sweden. We don't have anything to learn from them. You know, we can't possibly do anything better in this country, and that's just annoying. That's just annoying.
Would you be considered anti-American by saying that?
Yes, many people would say that I'm anti-American. That it's somehow I'm not patriotic. My whole issue with patriotism is that it becomes like a religion. It becomes part and parcel to people's religion. It becomes like something sacred. Like the worst thing you can say to some people is that there's something wrong with America. That's to some people, being unpatriotic is a sin, and I'm not joking about that. To some people, their patriotism is like a religion to them. It's sacred to them. You can't question patriotism. It's you know, that should be next to godliness for some people, and I just don't buy it. It holds us back because we're not honest with ourselves, and this has to do with racism, because looking at our past, we don't look on it honestly. We don't look at our past honestly. In the 20th century, in the 19th century, name a time in any century, we're not looking at ourselves honestly. And if we don't look at ourselves honestly, then we can't make changes, because we can't agree on what we should change. You know, one side says there's nothing wrong with us, we're great already. Another side says that, well, there are some things that we should change about America to make it fair and equitable for more people.
Right.
and then that criticism alone makes you somehow anti-patriotic. I mean, Black Lives Matter has been labeled some sort of anti-American group, anti-American organization,
Right.
and that doesn't make sense to me. These are Americans trying to make life better for fellow Americans. That should be considered a patriotic act. You might not agree with them, but to call them somehow anti-American, they're somehow socialist, and call them all kinds of names if you want to try and make it seem Marxist, to try to make it seem like they're not Americans, but they are.
Well, name, like I've said this, we've said this before on the show, that you name any group of people that came together, that were Black people that came together for a common cause, were labeled something.
Yep.
The Black Panthers were labeled, and actually they started off, with something that was very positive. They were protecting the community because of the police violence and brutality.
Yeah.
They were handing out food to the community. They were watching over families, making sure people were safe in their communities.
Yeah.
And they were labeled. We just mentioned Martin Luther King. He was trying to do something. And the thing that has plagued this country is the fear of someone of another ethnicity gaining mass control of the people in general. Martin Luther King had the ability to really galvanize this country into the right direction, but also doing it, he would have then have gained a certain amount of power.
Yeah.
He would have had more power than the president of the United States.
Yeah.
He's had crowds bigger than any president. So that's a fear of some people. That's a fear. And that was the fear when Obama got in office. They feared that would happen. And so to block anything that he was trying to do, and I'm not saying that everything Obama did was right. I'm not saying that at all. But there was a fear. And if you research the term, the Black Messiah, that's a term that is used for, they're always looking for this next person. Huey P. Newton, when he was with the part of the Black Panthers, he was viewed as this person. You had so many over the years. Stokely Carmichael. You had all these people that was feared because they can bring people together, and they didn't want that type of control. One person had that kind of control. And so they're labeled, and that label distracts them. If Black Lives Matter was a group that was able to cause political change in this country, policy change with police brutality, that's power. That's power. And right now, like I said, with George Floyd, the only reason why it got that much attention and the reason why the protests happened the way they were is because many white people felt that was totally cruel to George Floyd.
Yeah.
It's when the white media and white America says, we've had enough. Why wasn't it enough before you understood it was enough?
So I want to go back to one thing you said earlier about, how African Americans have always been fighting for rights from day one. Some of the more patriotic groups, as far as like military service, have been minority groups, have been African Americans, have been Native Americans, people. We have had foreign citizens be in our armed services and then be denied citizenship. So, the question that many people returning troops had is, why don't you love me? I went to fight for this country. Literally, I might have been injured or lost a leg, and still this country doesn't think of me on equal terms. That still applies today. We heard that in the Vietnam era, and then 50 plus years after, we're still in that same place. We still have people who are fighting and dying for this country, who many people don't think of as equal citizens. And that still applies today.
I mean, you think about who does that. What country does that? Where, especially like in the 60s and the 70s, I mean, actually throughout our history of wars, you've had minorities go fight and some lose their life fighting in wars for a country who don't care for them the same way.
Well, that's happened all throughout history. I mean, any conquering empire would have used conscripts to it. Like you subjugate a population, you're going to make the Gauls or the the Russes fight for you because, well, their lives are worth less than the Roman citizens, right?
Exactly.
Or, if Mongolia, as they were sweeping across Asia, they're going to use the Persians.
Yeah.
Because why? Because, well, they're not Mongols.
Yeah,
So we're going
they're
to put those
expendable.
guys in first.
They're
And
expendable.
then, so yeah, that's how, I mean, even in the American Revolution, there was Prussians and French soldiers and people that were mercenaries
Yeah.
who fight other people's wars. So that's nothing new.
Right. Right.
Um,
But we're looking at.
So anyways, I asked Bria to put up this question. I thought this is, of all of our questions that we did yesterday, this is one that produced probably the most conversation about, because we have three terms here. And my point was that there are three different things to me. And I'd like to get some people's opinions out there on it, maybe. White supremacy, white America, and white privilege. What are these things?
Yeah.
So for me, white supremacy is the minority, ugly view, the ugly, corner of America. That's the KKK. It's the white power movement. It's the very in your face ugliness that
Right.
we could all hopefully agree is bad. White America is a term that's a lot more nebulous. It's a lot more. What does that exactly encompass? Well, that's up for debate. I don't know. White America, to me, is a comforting sort of bubble existence where you're not necessarily aware of other people's experiences, other cultures, other countries, even like the inner city. You won't be aware of what life is like. So you grow up with a sort of a little bit of a myopic mindset. Sometimes a lot of people, when like they grow up in a small town, and maybe it's when they go off to college or go to a city and live for a while, and they're like, their eyes might be open. They meet people who are diverse. They meet people from other countries who speak a different language or a different religion, and it kind of opens their eyes. And I think that's really a good thing. But I think of white America, some people don't ever get out of that. So I think of white America as sort of a bubble existence, and white privilege is something that all white people enjoy, whether they know it or not. It's a different starting line for people over minorities. So that's my three terms. That's how I would define them.
Yeah. But I know when you mentioned white America, you said they're in a bubble. But yesterday, I know you mentioned it, how it would, you gave the example of rural America not being in tune with inner city America.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pick on people, but I just think that I just think a lot of people never get beyond like putting themselves in somebody else's shoes. They see America as a white country because 90% of the people they know and meet and talk to and have ever known and that are friends with are white people.
Yeah.
So I just think that their view is limited. One thing about that is that we have such our country's divided geographically because more and more people are now living in urban or suburban settings, and so there's this there's a dividing line that's more distinct now than it used to be. There's just a lot of people that live very different lives if you live in a city or if you live in a small town. I just think they're very different.
But when you watch prior to this year, I would say, because things have been so outspoken now, especially through online media as well as TV. But prior to this year, I would say, you can watch TV and you can watch white America. You can watch a TV show. Watching TV shows you how America is trying to identify itself.
Yep.
You can see it through. We mentioned this before. The only time you see a minority commercial is when a minority show is on. If it's an all minority commercial, it's only when a certain TV show is on. But if you're looking at your regular mainstream shows, you don't see that. So when you watch TV, you watch sports, you watch everything, it identifies just by seeing that. So those are the things that set the perception in your minds. If you go back to the 70s, when you looked at a minority, they were either a criminal, a housekeeper, It was something of playing a role that set a perception in people's minds, a stereotype, I would say, in their minds. And so that's where people identified with America. Because, for instance, again, I have family overseas. They come to town. I remember in the 80s. Remember when Miami Vice was a really hot show?
Yeah.
And, it was stopping crime, a black guy, a white guy coming together to stop crime. Well, when my family was over here, we were driving down the street and we saw this store get raided. And they had these people on the floor, on the ground, handcuffed, and they had guns to their heads and everything. This was like 86, 87. And my family member was like, wow, just like Miami Vice. He thought like, that's America. We're stopping crime. We're coming together like this. And I'm like, dude, let's go. Let's duck. Let's move. They got guns out. Let's go. He's in awe, like, wow, just like Miami Vice. So people have a perception worldwide by looking at us on TV.
Yes.
So
yes.
when you get these
They
stereotypes,
know us by our
in
TV
play-
shows.
Yeah. So if you get these stereotypes in play, people think that's how people really are.
Yep.
When the Cosby Show came out, that was like unprecedented
Yep.
to see these black professionals and these kids living everyday lives like every other suburban community in America.
Yeah. Would you also put in the Fresh Prince in that category?
I would say the Fresh Prince to a certain extent, but they used another stereotype. They took this
Inner city black person.
hoodlum type kid and brought him to the suburbs to show him how to be civilized.
Right. Okay.
But the good point about that is showed a black family who were living life like a suburban white family. The father was a judge. You know what I'm saying? I forgot what her role was, the mom was, but they lived this life like a white family would that had money, that was wealthy.
Right.
And now, but think about it. If you have a white family that's wealthy like that, and you brought a poor white family member to that family, it would be the same thing. They would be out of place. They were like, whoa, I'm trying to get used to this. It wouldn't be any different, but it made a difference for TV because it was a black family and you were used to seeing that.
Okay.
You don't see the typical, I guess the most broke show with many white people was Beverly Hillbillies. That was like the brokest family until they hit the lottery. You know what I'm saying? You don't typically see that. Little House on the Prairie was another one, but it was, how many shows do you see poor white people in TV?
Geez, I don't know.
See what I'm saying? So the identity,
Roseanne was kind of a poor family.
There was a middle class family.
Yeah, I'm
They
trying
weren't
to
poor.
see. I'm trying to think.
It wasn't like watching Good Times.
No.
You don't see the white family in the apartment complex, or the trailer park. You know what I'm saying? You don't see that.
I mean, yeah.
Now
I think
it's
that
mockery.
What's that?
Now it would be mockery. It would be like a joke when you see that now because they make it a comical piece. A white family in a trailer park is comical, is mockery. When it's actually sometimes they're struggling just like black people in the projects are struggling.
Yeah.
They're just in rural areas where they're in trailer parks.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I think that's totally true that other countries probably view our TV shows, at least they did, and think that's America.
Right.
And so oftentimes my beef with TV was no matter who the family was, black or white or whoever, Hispanic, it was always some sort of idealized existence.
Yeah.
It's just not reality, A lot of that wasn't reality. That's not the typical family, but it was sort of an idealized family or an idealized situation, Most of the shows were like that.
Yeah.
It was some sort of idealized family. So if you had a broken family, if you had a dysfunctional family, if you had a family who had hard times, you might feel bad about watching that.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, this is, here, your dad's a doctor, mom's a lawyer, that kind of thing. It's like that really doesn't exist for 99.8% of people. So
Yeah.
So it's an idealized standard.
Yeah.
That everyone would try to live up to because it's like they put it on TV. Now I think they do a much better job of like being real. I just wanted to see TV programs that were real. Um,
Did you ever watch Blackish?
I have, yeah.
What
What do
did
you think of that? What do you think of that show? I just wanted your opinion on that deal.
I'll give you mine, but I want to hear yours first. When you
Well,
first
I
saw
think
the show.
I think that's an important show. I think it's a funny show. I think they bring out, but he definitely brings out a lot of issues on
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
I think I think that probably opens some eyes as to like, well, as to non-black families, as in, well, this is what we deal with.
Yeah.
You know, we deal with the talk we give to our children about when they get stopped by police. So they deal with that on
Yeah.
that show. They deal with what it's like to be black in America.
Yeah.
Rather than some sort of like fake dialogue. You know?
Mhm. I think what's real about the show, that's about the most realest show there is, because of the characters and their position. You have a mother and father who grew up in poverty or lower income households
Okay.
and have made it. They've created that American dream and made it for their families,
Okay.
and they moved to a better community, or to establish themselves, and they dealing with things that many Black Americans can witness to.
Uh-huh.
You've made it, you've accomplished some things, and you're still going through issues
Uh-huh.
that our ancestors went through, or not just from the physical. I'm talking about from just the mental exhaustion, the mental fatigue of racism. So you have the mom who's a surgeon, right? She's a surgeon, I think it is. And then you have the father, he's in marketing.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And you see the conversation they have with their coworkers.
Uh-huh.
Those are the same conversations that we've talked about. I told you the conversations I've had with coworkers before. Or
here's a
with
question
neighbors.
that I want to get people's opinion out there if they have any opinions about why is it, and you admitted to this, so why is it African Americans are comfortable talking about race and white America is not? That's something that's a part of white America. White America, we don't like to talk about race. In general, by and large, it's like that's a taboo subject sometimes.
Yeah.
And because I don't know why. I don't really know why. I guess you could say that we don't like to feel uncomfortable, or we might feel guilty about it, or we don't want to feel bad about things, so we don't talk about it. But I don't know. I don't know why.
That's a question I can't answer. Only you can answer it. And see, that's a conversation I would challenge you to have with your white friends.
Okay.
Yeah, have that conversation. Like, why is it difficult for us to talk about this? Why is it that we want to rather brush it under the rug instead of address these issues?
Well, here's another question, because I get this thrown back in my face a lot. Is like, well, that's political. And my answer to that is like, well, what isn't political nowadays? It seems like everything's political. Why does race have to be a political matter? It doesn't have to be a political matter.
Well,
it's like we have this term called the race card, and that's something that you shouldn't play. You can't play the race card. Playing any kind of card is considered bad. You're playing the race card. Therefore, that's something that's a negative phrase, right? So you don't want to play the race card.
Well,
you went there. You played the race card. Don't you hear that?
Yeah,
do you hear that?
Who says it and who does it protect?
I hear that all the time. It protects white people.
Right, exactly. Because that's what I'm saying. A black person they don't have to throw a card out there. They can give a life experience. It's not a card.
Okay,
it's a distraction. But to say that term is a distraction, because you don't want to face the issue that's on the table. Not only that, if you face the issue, you accept the issue, you know it's true, you're then held accountable. When you're held accountable, you can't go back and forth with that issue again the same way you did prior.
Okay.
It's about accountability.
Here's what I believe a lot of white people believe out there, and somebody can comment if they want to and correct me if I'm wrong. But if you were to play the race card, then you're saying that white people would rather deal with the issue, what they see as the issue, rather than it's a race issue. So if you go to the race issue, if you go to the race card, then you're ignoring the problem that exist, right? So white people see crime. Let's take crime. Okay, so many white people, I'm not saying all, I'm not saying me, but many white people will say, well, statistically, minorities have greater crime in their neighborhoods.
Mhm.
It's not a racial thing, right? That's what a lot of white people will say. That's what I've been told by white people. Hey, this isn't, the police aren't racist. They're just going where the crime is, and they're
Okay.
patrolling where the crime is.
Right.
That's why minorities are arrested more often. Okay, and for you to bring up race, then they say, oh, you're playing the race card,
Right.
and then
right.
you're ignoring the issue.
Right.
Um,
So what is the issue then? When you say crime in a black,
the issue is crime.
the issue is crime. But now the issue is, why does that crime exist in those communities?
I think for several reasons. One of the reasons why the statistics of crime are the way they are is the decisions police departments make as to where they are trying to enforce laws. So they will go into communities where they believe they will find the most criminals. So they're going to patrol the streets where they're going to find the most speeders. They're going to try and patrol the streets where they believe that most crime exists. However, you could find crime anywhere.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, why is that crime the rate that it is in those communities? The crime rate isn't there because people want to just commit crime, I don't think.
No.
The crime rate is high because a lot of people are trying to survive. The whole thing about it is that how many resources are taken out of that community? The funding that's not in those communities, the things that the jobs aren't in those communities. It's just so many things that go into play there. And I'm not giving it a pass. I'm not saying I approve of it. I totally disapprove of any crime in any community. But what I'm saying is that when people put will bring race into a situation, they're comparing it to where the crime is not at. And why is that? Why is the funding in certain places? Look at school districts, the same thing. The funding is not is disproportionate in these different communities. So that makes a difference. And when those issues are discussed properly, then you can say, okay, I understand why the crime rate is where it's at. Because if you look at the same type of situation and put another group of people there, the crime rate is still there. Crime is there where the need is for people to survive. Then, because you could compare, what is the difference between inner city crime and you would say a white collar crime? Both are bad.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Usually the nature of the crime, if you say white collar crime, I'm picturing some sort of like embezzlement or something that involves a lot of people, that affects a lot of people, a whole company full of people, or like some sort of insider trading. That's what I picture when you say white collar crime. You're picturing some sort of large scale, big business, some sort of organized effort.
So when you look at inner city crime, you're looking at
gangs.
What else?
That's what just comes to mind when people think that.
Yeah, but what else? It could be so many things. So even use the gang example. Most of the time, would you say that's more so survival?
Yes.
And when you look at white collar crime, what is that?
Greed.
So you look at that greed versus survival. That affects people across the globe. Mm-hmm. Greed versus survival. If you look at the start of the crack epidemic, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about how crack got into the communities around the country. I told people before, watch the movie Kill the Messenger. I don't know if you ever seen it yet. Did you? You didn't look at it yet, did you, Darren? Kill the Messenger. Yeah, I think I
forgot. So
find that movie.
It's on my list.
Yeah, look at the movie. So the whole point I'm making is that, they were basically saying that the drugs were planted in these communities for these people to kill each other over drugs. They knew that the impact that crack was going to have in these communities.
Okay.
Now you think about this. If you gave a kid And think about it, they would give it to a kid that was young, broke, didn't have anything. If you gave a kid $1,000 and said, put this dope on the street, and they looking to survive, would they do it? Yes. It doesn't matter the race of people. It doesn't matter the color of skin. You can give it to anybody that's struggling, they'll do it.
Yep.
Because you see it happening now. Right now, you have people that are selling opioids the same matter, the same way.
Yeah.
You know, people have been going through a financial crisis over the last 4 to 5 years in sense of because of certain jobs moving out of the country, certain industries that are shutting down, people are losing jobs. What do? They turn to sell drugs.
Desperation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Desperation, because they're trying to survive. And so it's so many things going to play there. And greed is the main. Dave Chappelle said the same thing. He said in a skit, desperation.
I had I'm wondering if Bria can throw up one of the banners about systematic racism. I think that would be another good conversation to have in our last
we could probably close out
segment here. Systematic racism. So I've heard so many people, white people, tell me that racism doesn't exist. That the systems are fair the way they are because fill in the blank, and they'll use slavery as an example because slavery hasn't been a thing since 1865. Therefore, things are fair, right? And
you'll pause right there. You just said slavery doesn't exist. It existed back then. Would you compare private prisons to slavery?
They are a form of slavery, yes.
So slavery still exists, then you're saying?
Slavery does still exist. So this is just what people tell me.
No, I'm just playing. I'm just being that irritant. You know what I'm saying? So the next time someone says slavery doesn't exist, you're like, hey, what is the private prison system?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, private prisons are an example.
I threw you off of that, didn't
I? A little bit. It's all right. No, throw me off. So anyways, my point about systematic racism is if we are able to someday expunge racism from culture, our society, from this country, in some sort of utopia, would we still have systematic racism? Or because the point I used to make is that the reason why we have systematic racism is because we have racist. And as long as we have racist in places of power, we're going to have systematic racism. But you told me yesterday that sometimes it's not because of somebody racist that's making a decision somewhere, like a judge or something. It's just because the system itself has built into the rules and the laws and the policies of this country that are racist.
Right. Totally agree.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you give me an example?
I stand by it. I mean, just the whole prison system is one of them. I mean, and you look at that one is that it's automatically it's an automatic, almost like an automatic empathy for a white person who commits a crime. Like I said, I just gave you the example. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about you're massacring a whole house of people. I just gave you the example of the guy that was the landlord. And how they gave him that really short prison sentence compared to what the maximum was.
Okay, so if we could, if we had sentencing guidelines that everyone followed, and we had judges who would apply them equally, regardless of who the person is, wouldn't that do away with systematic racism in our justice system?
That's a portion of it, but also those that are even put in front of the judge would be different if that was done properly. The people that are arrested was done properly. Okay. Those that was the sentencing was done properly.
So where's the inequality? Is it about money? Is it about lawyering? Is it about representation?
All of it goes into the psyche, the mindset of what's considered illegal and who are considered illegal, or when I say illegal, what is considered a crime and by whom are those people considered a criminal. And that's all done by optics. You can pass a person who's in the midst of doing a crime, and you will look past him because you don't think he's a criminal. Then you will go. There was another raid done. They were showing what a no-knock raid looks like. No-knock raids are used only because there's no other way to get the warrant issued. A no-knock warrant is, from what I understand, and I wish I could have brought that one up. That would have been a great one to have as one of my articles. I was just reading this yesterday, but they showed this family. It happened like in 2018, and they're still having stress, PTSD from that raid, where the cops came in. It was like
Middle
a
of the night,
mother. It's a father, mother, and a couple of kids in there, and they were terrified because they thought somebody was breaking into the house.
Yeah.
They break in, weapons are shown, and then they're throwing these tear gas bombs in the house, and they're bringing people out. And they're like, so one girl left out the back door to go to a neighbor's house to call the police because she didn't know this was the police coming in. And you ever think that why would a no-knock warrant be issued in that case when it's a family with kids in the house?
Yeah.
What would be the purpose of a no-knock warrant? Why are you surprising them like that? What would be the purpose?
Yeah. What's the point? Yeah.
That's like, it's not like you went and tried to serve a warrant several other times and it was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
You know, so that was a case of you decided to do this to that family. It wasn't like it was a, you don't do no-knock warrants all the time on everybody. It's certain families get this no-knock warrant. And then it goes back through history from post-Civil War, when a no-knock warrant is issued, was to a black family, and you had the right to knock on that door and go in that house and drag people out.
Wow.
Emmett Till was done the same way, and it wasn't even the police. It was random. It was just
random people.
It was people who accused him of doing something wrong, and they go in the house and drag him out of bed and they murder this guy. That was and the thing about it though, it was, you could say without saying, it was sort of legal for them to do that. That's a perception of being legal. That wasn't a legal act. Even during Jim Crow, that wasn't legal. It was just that it wasn't addressed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I've been converted. I think that not only are there racist people, but there's racist systems in place.
A system in place, and that is the thing about it. What changes that is when you put people in power. When you put a diverse people of power over something, the perspectives are different. If you have 10 people or 9 people on the jury and they all feel the same way or come from the same cloth, they're going to probably judge the same way. But if you have a diverse group of people on a jury, you're going to have different perspectives in that jury deliberation. Okay. You're going to hear from this perspective and that perspective, and you're going to put it all together based on the facts that's presented to you. But if everyone's thinking the same way, that could be misleading when it comes to the verdict. That could be in jury. That could be on the job. I'll give you an example. Roseanne Barr said some racist things and got kicked off her own show.
Yep.
How many times have you heard Roseanne Barr say something stupid? Tons of times.
Every year, yeah.
And she's able to still come back on, right?
Yeah.
What was the difference?
Maybe not now.
What was the difference in this case? Do you remember?
People are more aware. People are less tolerant of that kind of stuff.
No, well, because of awareness. But what made this case different was that ABC had a black female vice president. That made a difference.
Okay.
What made a difference? Like people are saying, well, Jay-Z's working for the NFL. I don't know how much of a influence Jay-Z is having with the NFL, but I know what was a greater influence was that the NFL was against Black Lives Matter and police brutality. But when the NFL football players who are the face of the NFL came out with a commercial, with their own video,
then the commissioner
exactly
had a statement, right?
Why did it make a difference this time? Because you had people of power.
The players, that's why.
The people of power. You had your Super Bowl champion in it. You had all the playoff quarterbacks in it that were black. Come in this video and say A, B, and C. Though you cannot, if you eliminate those people of power, your brand is then impacted.
Okay.
Money wise, the bottom line is it's those dollars will be impacted. Think about it. If those players had not did that video, Goodell would not have did his video, and it was not those words. The thing that you see would not have changed.
Yep.
And so your people of influence have to be there and have to speak up. And that's what happened with the NFL. I'm not saying everything they're doing is right, because having words on the field does nothing for me. You know, in the NBA, having words on the back of your jersey does nothing for me. Change policies, change the way you do business. That's what's going to make the change. That's the system that's creating these problems.
Okay.
Those people involved aren't all racist. I don't believe that at all. But it's a system that they bought into and they stick with it. And that, if that wasn't the case, we would have a black owner in the NFL by now. Why does it make a difference? It makes a difference. You will have players, or you have coaches that are in the NFL right now that we have more minority coaches if it wasn't the system. But you know,
Well, so I think that white coaches can also do a lot as well. Coach Popovich has been one
awesome.
who has spoken out quite openly, and the reason why he can is because he has 5 titles. I think it's 5 titles.
Yeah.
5 titles, and he's been there forever. And so San Antonio, he's not going anywhere.
Who?
They respect him.
Who's that?
The Spurs.
Oh, the coach. Yeah.
I mean, they're not gonna get rid of Popovich.
No, but
so he's an icon there.
Another one is the Golden State Warriors coach.
Yes,
Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr
is another one. Yeah.
No, those people, when you hear a coach speak the way they speak, they've had those intimate conversations with different people to come to that type of mindset. That's what you don't see normally. You could be a coach in a locker room and not even know the pulse of your locker room. A lot of coaches say they do, but you can tell the ones that do. You can tell when they speak. You can tell those who, like I say, Pittsburgh Steelers have done it right forever. They've done it right.
Yeah.
And then, some may beg to differ with that, but Pittsburgh has done it right. And so, and not because they have their coach, Mike Tomlin, there for this long, but just throughout their team, they've done it right.
Yep.
I can't stand them.
I think if I would have to do a bottom line for us this morning, my bottom line would be for us, all of us, the two of us, everyone listening, for all of America, is to keep on. Don't get tired. Don't get fatigued. We talk about COVID fatigue. There's also sort of this Black Lives Matter fatigue. There's people get tired of talking about racism, and people want it to go away, right? So, but we need to keep at it. Otherwise, these things will just be like, oh, remember that summer when George Floyd, and we had things were looking up, and we were going to make a difference. Well, what happened to that? We don't want to be in that situation a couple of years from now. It's like, well, what happened to that? Same things are happening. We want to be able to keep the awareness up, and we want to be able to change society. Right. And the comment we had about money, the Washington Redskins, that's completely correct. Yeah. That's completely correct. It's going to take. Sometimes it takes big money companies to say, you know what, I'm not going to advertise on your channel anymore. Yeah. That's when things change. Yeah. You have a cable host who says something, they're going to keep saying it until, like, you have Johnson & Johnson and General Motors. They say, you know what, we're not going to advertise on your channel anymore.
So when you mentioned that about the Redskins. Look at the Redskins. That's been a debate for years. Why wasn't it
Good
heard?
Question.
Why wasn't it heard when the Native Americans were saying that it was disrespectful for them? Why
because
was it pushed under the rug?
Because it's 2020.
It was pushed under the rug all those years. But again, like I said with George Floyd, white America say we've had enough.
Yep. That's what it took.
Why is it okay for that to happen?
That's what it took.
It was Native Americans saying, I'm tired of this. Stop doing this. Stop doing that. Hey, good morning, Joshua. Glad to see you, man. Thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate you. But it took for the sponsors to pull out because they were losing money. The sponsors were losing money for supporting it. So that goes the same thing for the Cleveland Indians. That goes the same. I think there was the Atlanta Braves had permission from the Indian tribe in that area to keep their name. And I think the same thing with the Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah,
a real name. They are a real tribe of Indians. So, or you would say Native Americans. So they're saying that, we want to keep that name, and they agreed with that. The Redskins is a slur.
Hmm. Yep.
The Indians, the Cleveland Indians, that face
Chief Wahoo's
is a mockery. That's
a mockery.
What Native American looks like Chief Wahoo? None. So why did it take for dollars to be pulled away from your organization and from your sponsors for you to say that's the system?
So
That's the system,
what's
man.
your bottom line, Mars?
My
What's your
bottom
bottom line for today in this conversation, this free form conversation we had?
My bottom line would be get out of your feelings and have real conversations.
Get out of your feelings, have real conversations. Okay.
That was kind of bold and direct, wasn't it?
No, that's cool.
Well, no. When I say get out of your feelings, it's like you're worried about, you just said it. More black people talk about racism than white people because white people feel they don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
When any topic that you feel that you're going to be uncomfortable talking about, think about the people, think about the topic and those that have been impacted by it and how uncomfortable they've been and how long have they been uncomfortable.
Yes.
Whether you're talking about sex trafficking, whether you're talking about drug abuse, police brutality, whether you're talking about racism, whether you're talking about immigration, whatever the topic is, and you're uncomfortable with that topic, think about how long those people that you're talking about have been uncomfortable.
Yep. I mean, I recall, who was it? I think it was, it happened on one of the sports shows during the summer, in the middle of the summer, after another incident. I want to say it was Kenny on the TNT. Well, he said, "I'm tired of talking about it." It might have been Charles Barkley. So I'm tired of being asked about it. Yeah. So whenever something happens, they would ask the black person.
Right.
So they would ask him all the time, "Well, what do you think about this?" He said, "I'm tired of talking about it because I get asked about this stuff all the time."
Yeah.
And so
it's exhaustion. I mean,
it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
I've heard this. I can't remember who said this quote. It's not a black person's responsibility to tell a white person how not to be racist.
That's powerful.
Or not to be aware of it. It's not our job. And that's why I always, when we have these discussions, I'll say, Darren, go back and talk to your friends. Go back and talk to your people. Like we were talking about the, what was it earlier? About the, and I told you the challenge. When they say racism doesn't exist. When you hear if you hear people say that, you challenge them to say, well, what about this? Why does it not exist in your mind? And then you have a real conversation and let people know, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to be putting anybody down. I want to have a understanding so we can come together and say, well, what's real and what's not real in this? Does the media cause more problems? Yes, it does. But the media has always caused problems. It's always been the same way. It's just that now more people are impacted that weren't impacted before. Like they say, white men are feeling attacked. White men aren't used to being attacked.
We're not used to it.
We're not used to it.
We're not used to it.
That's why I say get out of your feelings. So, oh man, we could go on and on, dude. But the bottom line is, just have these conversations. Stop running from something that can be actually for the betterment of our country, but we're running away from it.
So have the conversation at the dinner table, have the conversation at church, have the conversation at schools.
Anywhere you want to.
In the classrooms.
It was a lady who's doing this right before I go. A lady was
at the workplaces.
Yeah, a lady just implemented a curriculum in her school for her students about Black Lives Matter, giving them a little history on the organization.
We should have her on. We should.
I gotta find out who it is. But I just read the article.
I'd be interested to know that.
She's been criticized, and they're really like trying to just ban that program in her school because of all the narrative about Black Lives Matter. So they don't want that to be the case.
One of the things that I've been tasked to do by our denomination where I live, I'm a pastor, and so our region has tasked the group that I'm in charge of with running a class. It would be an online class because of COVID about white privilege from a biblical standpoint or biblical spiritual standpoint. Okay. So that's something that I'm going to tackle next year. Okay. And anyways, I just thought I'd mention that. That's awesome, so I got to learn a lot.
That's gonna be tough, man. That's gonna be tough being in your position, looking like you look, having that conversation.
Well, these are going to be all people who look like me.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So-
saying. That's going to be tough because you're going to tell some truth there that they might not like to hear.
Right. Well, it helps to be able to lean on some curriculum or some facts and stories and news and details.
Yeah.
Hey, that it said it's like, hey, this isn't me. This is just reality. So,
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah.
anyways,
keep
I
us
just
up
thought
to
I'd
date on
mention
that.
that since we talked
I would
about
love
white
to do a show.
privilege.
I would love to do a show with you on your response or how that turned out. Just have you do like a one-on-one interview of how that turned out for you.
But yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for sure.
So next week, man, we're going to have healthcare providers on talking about their experience of they're actually procedures that they're doing to take place during this time of COVID. I know that's another exhausting thing about COVID, but this is from a different perspective of inside these medical facilities, how they're handling it with procedures and to ensure people the safety of going to the doctor. You can
Yeah.
go to the doctor, you can go to the dentist and get treatment.
Yes.
And there are safety precautions in place for that. So it'll be
You know,
good.
one of the things I still haven't had my eyes checked. I was supposed to go back in the spring to do that. I haven't gone to the dentist yet. I was supposed to do
Yeah.
that in the summer. So things
Yeah,
like
same.
that,
Yeah.
things that are like not really an emergency thing. I've been putting them off.
Me too,
So-
man. I canceled a physical already, and I need a dentist appointment, man. Like bad, man. I need to go get in there. So
I mean, a lot of these medical institutions they are under contracts where some of them can't talk about what happens inside
yeah,
a hospital or a nursing home, for example. So we're appreciative of these people being able to give their insights of what's going on. I
Yeah.
heard President-elect Biden talking to frontline workers, talking to nurses yesterday on. No, was it yesterday? Must have been Thursday. It was on Thanksgiving. So that's. I'm glad that they're getting respect. I'm glad that they are being thought of and being prayed
Yeah.
for in our society. So,
okay.
anyways, thanks for joining us today on the
Yeah.
bottom line. We'll see you again next week. Watch for updates during the week. Take care. Take care of yourselves. Peace, everybody.
Take care.